Bears build lead with Burgess 50. It's been a pretty even contest at Edgbaston so far. Patterson popped up with 5 for Notts to haul Warwickshire in. Their final wicket partnership took them to 341 before Notts' reply got underway. 3 wickets down, but the deficit dipping towards 150. Joe Clark had finished the day unbeaten on 48 and wasted no time converting that into a half-century. 2 runs off Bresnan, coming 4 balls into the day. But the Bears had a moment to enjoy early too. James misjudged Miles' delivery, the ball left, and he had to go for 4. Mullaney didn't need long to settle in, the boundary rope found early in his innings, as he and Clark took the total past 200. Warwickshire had found a bit of a groove early on though, and Bresnan removed the set Joe Clark LBW for 61. Mullaney and Moores had the deficit ticking down, but they couldn't keep the Bears out. Briggs produced a delivery that beat the veterans' defences and brought his innings to an end, out for 28. Moores wouldn't be able to stick around for too long either, 13 to his name when he fired a catch back at Rhodes, and the all-rounder gobbled it up, Notts' innings wobbling. Chappell and Patterson-White took Notts to 250, but they never looked in total control, and it wasn't long before the partnership was separated. It was Chappell who fell, a catch chipped to Lamb off the bowling of Norwell. They reached lunch at the end of the next over, Notts trailing by 61 with 2 wickets left. Could they find parity after the break? Fletcher couldn't do much to help them, strangled down the leg side and out for 2, Notts now relying on their final wicket pair. Patterson didn't wait around. Just a few balls into his innings he went big against Briggs, in an expensive over for the spinner. His colleague at the other end would be the one to go. Burgess did really well to take the underedge from his attempted reverse, and Notts were all out for 297. Their deficit, 44. Warwickshire had edged ahead after a less than straightforward day with the bat for Nottinghamshire. There'd been the required fight back at the tail end of the innings to ensure they didn't trail by too many, but it hadn't managed to find parity. Norwell was the pick of the bowlers, albeit a little bit expensive for his 4 wickets. Yates and Rhodes had Warwickshire up and running in confident fashion, batting at a decent rate to bring the 50 up, and then take their advantage back up to 3 figures with little to worry them so far. They found their way into the 70s when Notts had their first wicket. Yates looked to leave, but there was too much turn, bowled by Patterson-White. There was enough time left in the session for Yates to go to 50. Fletcher flayed for 6 to get him to the cusp of the mark, before another boundary made it an expensive over for the bowler and took the opener to his half-century. When they made it to tea, the score was 5 shy of 100, and the lead was now a healthy 139. Milan looked devastated to depart after tea, caught off Chappell for 6. The Bears found their way to triple figures, but didn't get much further before Chappell popped up with another wicket. Hayne caught behind for 5. He was hauling Notts back into it, Rhodes his next victim, a delicious delivery clipping the off stump, even Chappell surprised that he'd bowled the Bears man. Lamb had been one of Warwickshire's stars in the first innings, but couldn't rediscover that form. He was the first of 2 to go in one Fletcher over. Bresnan followed in his footsteps a few balls later, caught behind for a duck. The Bears in a bit of trouble, with their lead an eminently gettable 178. Briggs hung around with Burgess and made sure that their advantage moved beyond 200 runs, the score ticking past 150 under their stewardship. And the keeper was key to their recovery. He was playing well, into the 40s before the end of the day, and he wouldn't have to endure an agonising overnight wait. The prospect of a tumultuous night's sleep dealt with when he ticked over to 50 runs. He and Briggs weren't going anywhere before the end of the day, and they reached the close still together, their partnership now worth more than 60, and their lead almost 250. Notts won't be put off by that total, desperate for the win to keep hold of top spot. The hosts had a balancing act ahead of them on day 3, the match delicately poised. More runs needed, but time was of the essence if they were hunting the win.